Good morning, everyone. You are welcome to Dari.io. My name is Bomasi Nwakiru. And you can see my picture. I just bring my picture in so that at least you can see my face somehow, so that we get to know each other. I know you have logged into this meeting room with your name. So definitely I will be able to know your name in case you are asking questions. So calling you by name will make us feel somehow closer. And very soon you will not be seeing my face anymore, but just for you to get familiar with me so that when you see me outside one day, we'll be able to recognize ourselves. That is on a lighter mood anyway. You are welcome to Project 11. So the project number we will be engaging on today is Project 11. And our topic will be Ansible. And we need this Ansible to automate what we have done through Project 7 to 10. It is true we may not be doing everything that we did in those projects, but we will be able to get the concept of what automation is, what you will be learning at the end of project implementation. That is another way we can say project objectives. We know what Ansible is as a configuration management tools, what Jump server or Bastion host is, how to install Ansible. We have a better understanding of integrated development environments, that is IDE or source code editor. Example is VS Code, and how to connect our local workstation to Git or via VSC. We also learn how to prepare Ansible playbook and inventory using YAML and how to run playbook. We also understand how SSH agents work, and we also learn how to use Jenkins freestyle projects. And finally, we will learn how to use Ansible to automate installation of applications on multiple servers. Our major tasks today will be install and configure Ansible client to act as Bastion host or Jump server. Number 2, create a simple Ansible playbook to automate servers configuration. Let's look at the many steps that we will be taking. We broke the step into 7. Number 1 will be install and configure Ansible on AWS EC2 instance. Compare your development environment using VSC. Create Git repository. Set up an Ansible inventory. Create a common Ansible playbook. Update Git with the latest code. Run first Ansible playbook. So these are the tasks that we will be carrying out in Project 11. So we are moving straight to this task. It will be easy when we continue. To be able to carry out this project successfully, there are some prerequisites we are supposed to meet up with. We're supposed to have watched Ansible video on Udemy, that is 1. Then 2, we're supposed to have done projects 1 to 10. Most especially from project 7 to 10. Very, very important that we'll have done that. So if we have done all that, it will be very easy for you to be carried along. Or however, if you have not done that, pay attention, go back to those projects, attempt them, and you will really enjoy it. The essence of this is to be able to build our learning step by step. If we don't take it step by step, we may get confused or even tired out. So let's go. Having gone through all the agendas that we are going to learn in our project today. It is time we dive straight into the first bullet point on our lesson agenda. And the first bullet point is what Ansible is as a configuration management tool. We may wonder what a configuration management tool is. Although we have a reference here, if we look through, we are going to see more definition, official definition of Ansible as configuration management tool. But to really understand the work that Ansible does, it is good we use illustration to explain these facts to you. Take for example, some of us here may be system administrator or we may be developers, and it is possible that we have worked as IT operation. Okay, think of it that you in an organization, you are a Windows Server administrator and you administer over 1,000 systems in your organization. And now think of it, maybe some computer systems are located remotely in different parts of the country. And now you are to send files or update patches to those workstations that is over 1,000 units. So imagine that now it takes you 10 systems per day if you are to send those updates to those systems manually. Now, for 1,000 systems, it is obvious that it will take you up to 100 days, which is above 3 months, for you to be able to complete your task of sending update patches to those systems. But the way Windows Server Active Directory is designed is in such a way that you can send those update patches at once, and as soon as those users boot up their system, they get the updates automatically installed on their systems. So if we think of it, just maybe within 2 days, you will be able to accomplish the tasks that it will take you over 3 months to accomplish. That is the power of automation. What of those developers, those in Linux world? Let's think of it this way. You are working with Google. All of us know google.com. We are very familiar. It's a familiar friend. And we know that at the back end, the number of web servers that google.com will be using is over 1,000 web servers. So imagine that you are among the development team that developed google.com. And now you want to install the operating system or deploy the operating system that will be used to do the system. Well, you have done that, developed it. Now it is time for you to install the servers, maybe Nginx server or Apache servers. So think of it. Now you go to each of the servers, install Apache, configure Apache, go to server 2, install Apache, configure Apache. If you are doing this manually, think of how long it will take you. And possibly only you will not be doing the task. So what do you think that could go wrong if we are doing this task manually? Okay? Well, it is clear that it will be prone to human error because we are all human. By the time you copy one thing over and over again, or you do the same task over and over again, what will happen? You will get bored and will start making mistakes. That is why if I ask you guys, call my name 5 times or 10 times simultaneously, what will happen? With time, we start saying jargons. That is how human brain work when we are doing repeated tasks. So this is where automation comes in. This is where automation is good at. Repetitive task. Okay, so since we have multiple systems, so definitely automation is the best, because if we do this manually, we will make a lot of errors, and at the same time, we will not be able to accomplish our goal. So now, this is where Ansible comes in. So when we talk about, most especially in Linux world, we use Ansible to do this automation, configure systems when we have multiple of them, and also install applications on these web servers simultaneously and on multiple fleets of systems at the same time. Now let's talk about YAML. If we look at it, we have YAML. We can also click to learn more about YAML. Well, when we talk about YAML, YAML is the declarative language that Ansible understands. And what I mean is that we use YAML file to talk with Ansible as an application or as a tool. So YAML file is just like every other programming language, but so to speak, it is not actually a programming language. We call them declarative language. Just for you to have a sample look at how a YAML file look like, let me open it so that you can see. Okay, so let's look at how a YAML file look like. So let me expand this so that we can see how YAML file look like. Okay, so this is how YAML file look like. But however, do not be intimidated with this. With time, we will definitely understand how this YAML file works. Okay, I hope we can see that. Do we see three dots there? Three dash dash. Then do we see dash name? They may look like jargon, but one simple truth is that we can read this clearly. That also, unlike programming language like Python, like Java, you see some strange symbols and all that. Sometimes you get tired if you are not a programmer. So, but even though we are not programmers, it is clear we can read this screen gradually. Is that not? We can see everything clearly. There are no jargons there. So that is why they are called declarative language. Okay, so we have been able to get through the first agenda, so we can take that good. What Ansible is as a configuration management tool. We have also okay, the next concept that we have to understand now is jump server or bastion host. Well, we can define it this way. Bastion host is an intermediary server through which access to internal network can be provided. If you think about the current architecture you are working on, ideally, the web servers should be inside a secure network which cannot be reached directly from the internet. So the point we are trying to explain here can be broken down using this diagram. Okay, in this diagram, we realize that we have the bastion host, we have the web server. They are all in one private, virtual private network. Okay, since they are in the same VPC, we know that the servers will be able to communicate with each other if properly configured via their private IP address. But now, how do external DevOps engineer have access to these servers? So the only way external DevOps engineer will be able to have access to this server is to remotely log into the Bastion host. He does not log into the web server directly. So what happens is that the DevOps engineer is able to log in through the internet via SSH. That is why we have TCP port 22 opened on all the servers. So if the DevOps engineer is able to access the Bastion host, now it is through the Bastion host access to other web servers will be possible through the same port 22 being opened on the web servers. So what is the need for the Bastion host? The need for the Bastion host here is in such a way that the DevOps engineer will not have direct access to the web server. So what he will do is that through the internet, he will be able to have access to the Bastion host. So from the Bastion host, he can run any configuration that he plans to run on the web servers. And that is why Ansible will be installed on this Bastion host. So from the Bastion host through SSH protocol, Ansible will be able to communicate with the two web servers involved. But we may be wondering, if we don't want external access to this web server, why is it called web server? After all, customers and other users should be able to have access to these web servers. Well, that is true. Reason well, they will actually have access to it. But as we continue in this program, we will learn more and we'll be able to see how external users will be able to communicate with these web servers. Okay, so that is how Bastion hosts work, and we have seen how it happens. So this will take us right away to the task. Okay, install and configure Ansible to act as a jump server or Bastion host. Okay, so this will take us right away to the next part of the project. So let's go through our instruction. Okay, so now it is time for us to install and configure Ansible on our EC2 machine. So, but what is the next task? Task number one says update name tag on your Jenkins EC2 instance to Jenkins Ansible. Okay, let's go straight away. To do that, we copy. It is always better to copy and paste. Then we go to our EC2 instance. So all we need to do is to click on the pencil icon. So to edit this, just cancel and paste. Ctrl V, and we save this. Okay, so we have done that successfully. So let's check the next task. Okay, the next task says in your GitHub account, create a new repository and name it Ansible config mgt. Ansible config mgt. So let's just copy, Ctrl C. So we go to my GitHub account. Okay, this is my GitHub account. I will just click on new. Okay, and paste the repository name. So I have pasted it. So I already have this in existence. Let me just add one to this so that they will be different. Okay, so we cannot click on add a readme. I can just write anything on the description that this project introduces us to Ansible. Okay? So once we are done, we click on create repository. Okay, our repository is created. Now let's move to the next task. So in our documentation, task number 3 says install Ansible. So we will use this two code to install Ansible. So for us to install Ansible, first we need to log into Ansible. Okay, so what we need to do is we want to first look for the IP address of the Ansible machine. Okay, so We get the public IP address. So that is how we are going to log in. Or we can also use the DNS name. Okay, so let's just click on connect here. There's another way we can log into the machine. So we can just copy this. The DNS name, Control C. So let me open my PowerShell. Or if you have any other terminal, you can as well use, or we accomplish the same thing. Since I have been logging into remote server, so there is likelihood that we have a code that will help me to do that. But since I have already copied the DNS name, so let me just paste. So I've pasted. So my pen key is not correct. So I need to go and get the right part. Okay, so I'll go to my system to locate where it is. So let me quickly go to my file in my system so I can do that. Okay, let me just open my file explorer. Go to my D drive, that is where I save it. All right, so let me quickly get the okay, this is it, osas.pem. So let me just copy parts. Copy as parts. So that have been copied. So I will just go right away to my machine to replace this. I can just press Ctrl A to take my cursor. Okay. So let me take my cursor back to edit this. Let me cancel this and paste the part correctly. Done. So let me click enter. So this will take me to the machine. Okay. Okay, I'm logged in to the remote server. Okay. So being there, so all I need to do now is to just do what we are instructed to do. The first is sudo apt update. That is to update the OS. So while it's updating, let me just copy the net CLI sudo apt install to install Ansible. Okay, update has finished. Let me install Ansible. Okay, I didn't copy correctly. So let me copy again. Let me copy again. Click install. Okay. Yes. Or just why? Our next step after installation will be to confirm if Ansible is successfully installed. It's installing. Let's be patient while it installs. Okay, so the installation is completed. So let me clear the screen and check if it has properly been installed, okay? By pasting Ansible version. Okay, so we have it installed. That is Ansible 2.10.8. Okay, so we have successfully installed Ansible. So we are through with task number 3. So this takes us to task number 4. Having installed Ansible successfully, it is time for us to move to step number 4. And step number 4 says configure Jenkins build job to save your repository content every time you change it. So before we get to this point, it's clear that we must have done project 9. Having done project 9, it is clear that we have installed Jenkins and we know a little bit of Jenkins to some extent. Or now we will understand Jenkins better than we did in project 9. So we have 3 steps we are going to take here. We will create a freestyle project named Ansible in Jenkins and point it to our repository. Then we will configure webhook in GitHub and set webhook to trigger Ansible build. Then the last option will be to configure a post build job to save all files, just as we have done in project 9. But first, let's just go to GitHub. Under GitHub, we are going to do the second task, that is to set up a web hook. Okay, so let's go to GitHub. So in our GitHub, normally we are supposed to be in home page. So in home page of GitHub, so we click on settings under the repository in question. Okay, under settings we click on webhooks. Hope we can see that clearly. Webhooks. So under webhook we click on add webhook. So under this we are going to change this URL here. It's my email, just come here by default. So to change the URL, we just go to Jenkins web page to copy Jenkins URL. Okay, we'll copy Jenkins URL. This is Jenkins web page. Just go straight, copy Jenkins URL. That is copied by pressing Ctrl C. Then we'll go back to Git interface. So on the Git, so we paste the URL that we copied. Is the URL that we copied, Ctrl V. But note, we add the following. We add github dash web hook, no S. Then we add forward slash. It is very important that we add a forward slash, else it won't work. Okay, so under the content type, we click application slash JSON. Okay, now that we have done that, we go straight to add webhook. Okay, so we have added webhook. So having added webhook, we can see that it check good. Sometimes it might not check, but it is possible like that. Even though, just go and configure the Jenkins interface to communicate with it. So now let's go to next task. So the next task we are asked to do is to create a freestyle project Ansible. Then the next one will be configure a post build. So we are going to do these two straight away. So now let's go back to our Jenkins web interface. Jenkins web interface. Okay. So now we are in Jenkins web interface. We can either click on new item or we click on create a job. So now I click on create a job. Remember, the name of our project is Ansible. I have copied it. Let me just paste. So that is it, Ansible. Then we click on freestyle project and click OK. Okay, so we can write description. We can write an introduction to Jenkins. Well, not Jenkins, rather, sorry for that. An introduction to Ansible. Ansible. Okay, so it is always advisable to write introduction, why it may not be compulsory. So an introduction to Ansible. We have done that. So since our Jenkins will be communicating with Git, so we are going to click on Git. Now we are required to paste the repository URL. So let's go back to GitHub and copy the repository URL. So let's go back to our repository since we are through with webhook. So we have the code. Under code, you click, then you have HTTPS option, you have SSH, you have GitHub CLI. No, we are going straight to HTTPS to copy the link. So we have copied the Jenkins link. Now we'll our go back to our Jenkins, okay? Since we have copied the URL. Now we come straight here to paste, okay? So having paste, you can ignore the credentials, so we understand it, how to use that when we move further. So under branch specifier, we change master to main. Master to main. This was changed due to Black Lives Matters in US. So Git no longer use master but main. Now, so we'll go straight to the next point. So under build triggers, we click on GitHub hook triggers. So we have clicked on that. Then the next step we are going to take is to go to post build action. So post build action. Under post build action, we have archive the artifacts. Archive the artifacts. So in our project instruction, this is what we were asked to do. It says configure a post build job to save all files. So now we are going to enter star. Okay, we have entered that. What that means is that Jenkins should save all files that are coming from the Git repository. So when we are through with that, we click on apply, then we click on save. Okay, good. So having clicked on save, let us click on build now to actually do the work that Jenkins is made for in this project. So I click on build. So let's hold on and watch Jenkins build a file. Okay, it has built, so we can see that it is checked good, build one. Okay, so we can just click on that, on the link. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's go back. So this is fine. So what can we see here? We can see the readme file that we have created. Okay, so this step is successful. So let's go back to our documentation. So in our documentation, we are through with step 4. Right now, we are moving to step 5. Step 5 says test your setup by making some change in readme file in master branch and make sure that build starts automatically and Jenkins save the files. Okay, now let's go to our GitHub. Okay, now we are in GitHub. Okay, so to edit, we are going to click on the pencil icon. So let us click on the pencil icon. Okay, here we are. So let me just type here, connecting Jenkins, Jenkins to GitHub, GitHub. Okay, so I have written something. Let's see what will happen. Okay, so having written something on my README, so let me click on save and see what happened in Jenkins interface. So let's go back to Jenkins. Let's go back to Jenkins interface. Okay, this is Jenkins interface. Here we are. Okay, let's go back to Ansible. So we are expecting it to build. So can we take note? You can see build number 2. Okay, so when we click on it, we can see it. We can see build number 2. Build number 2. Okay, hope we are all following. All right, we have been able to accomplish that task. Okay, now let's go back to our documentation. So we are going back to our documentation page. Now we move to the next step. It says ls this part. Okay, let's go and ls it, and this we can do on our machine. Okay, so we can click on this. Usually I like to edit it just to make life easy. Remember the build number. So I go to my notepad so that I can edit. Okay, notepad. So notepad, notepad. Okay, so let me just edit it. Okay, Control V. So to remember our build number or to know what it is, so let's go back to our Jenkins interface. We see that our last build is number 2. So we are going to use that build number 2. So coming to the URL, coming to the parts, so we change the build number to 2. Okay, we change the build number to 2. So let's just copy and paste in our machine. Okay, Control C to copy. So let's go back to our machine. Okay, so we are here in our machine. So we press, okay, we paste. So having paste, let's see what happened. So do we understand what has happened here? So what Jenkins is doing in this job is to copy whatever we have on our Git repository down to our remote server. That is the job of Jenkins here. Hope we get that right. So our README file have been copied. So if we want to even know what is in the README file, we can also know as well. Okay, so we can, let's see what we wrote there, and you will be able to see how clear this thing can be and how easy it can be. So let me just cut what is there in README file. Cut. Okay, so Control E to take our cursor to the end. Okay, so we have a readme readme.md readme.md. So these are what we have in the readme file. Okay, hope we get this clear. Okay, now let me clear the screen so we can move further. Now let's move further. So on getting there, we'll go to our next step. Okay, fine. Okay, we are here. This diagram just explain what we have done so far. So what we have here is that we have the GitHub. Through the webhook, GitHub was able to communicate with Jenkins, or in another word, Jenkins was able to pull file from the GitHub through webhook functionality of GitHub. and also it pull this file to Ansible server. Although both Jenkins and Ansible were installed in the same server. So having learned about NFS server, so since Jenkins will become Ansible rather will be communicating with the NFS server, or they share the same file. So definitely whatever content we get here will automatically go to the NFS server, and all the servers that are connected to it will be able to share from the file. Now, let's take note of this tip. It says every time you stop/start your Jenkins server, you have to reconfigure GitHub webhook to a new IP address. So in order to avoid it, it makes sense to allocate an elastic IP to your Jenkins Ansible server. Okay, you have done it before to your LB server in project 10. What they are saying here is exactly the truth, because if I have to stop the server, what happens is that the IP is dynamic. Then when IP is dynamic, then you lose your IP. Then when you turn on the server, you automatically get another IP. So elastic IP, another name for it is actually static IP, but Amazon terms theirs elastic IP. So static IP, once we configure this, since we have learned how to use it, so we won't be considering that now. But well, in my own project, you know that sometimes AWS can be a bit expensive. They can charge anyhow. So since the project I'm running is straight, so I don't think there will be need for me to use elastic IP. So it's a straight project. I'm not going to shut down the machine, so there won't be need for that. Okay, so that is why I did not use elastic IP. In your own case, you can use it. Possibly you may not be doing the project at a stretch, so that you will not lose your IP address. If at all you lose your IP address, all you need to do, you use the new IP address that the system have given to your machine or your server. Then you have to reconfigure your webhook so that you won't be having error. Otherwise, your work will not build. So this now takes us to step 2. Prepare your development environment using Visual Studio Code. Okay, so we are going to do that. Say first part of DevOps is dev, which means you will require to write some codes, and you shall have proper tools that will make your coding and debugging comfortable. You need an integrated development environment or source code editor. So what we mean is that, you know that sometimes when you want to edit file, for example, as we are in this machine, most time you want to edit, you use VI, you use Nano. If we have experienced that, we discover that it's not that friendly. Sometimes you make mistake to correct it will be very difficult, or somehow, most especially if you are not very skillful using them. So that is why it is good for us to use any of these two. We have the Visual Studio Code, we have the Atom, we have many others that we can use, but these projects we will be using Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code is actually very popular. If we don't have Visual Studio Code installed, this is where you can get the link to install it. It's actually a product from Microsoft. This is how Visual Studio Code look like. Let me just open a fresh page so that you will see how it looks like after you have installed it. Okay, so I'm just opening a fresh page. So this is a fresh page. This is how it looks like after you install. Okay, I don't need to update now. If you have installed that, you can equally go to, normally once you install it, you expect you to install additional functionalities called extensions. You can click on extensions, but as we go on in this project, we will learn more about the extensions we are going to install. So let's go back home. This is how it is. So let's go to our documentation to learn more of what we are going to do. Going back to our documentation. So on our documentation, they say after you have successfully installed VSC, configure it to connect to your newly created GitHub repository. Clone down your Ansible repo to your Jenkins Ansible instance. But here we are actually cloning it to our local machine, okay? We're cloning it to our local machine. I've already configured mine. Okay, let's see how we can clone. But what I'm going to do here, I will just create a folder in my system because I have much folders in my system. So let me create a folder. Let me just tag the folder. Okay, let me create a new folder. Let me name it accordingly. New folder. Let me name it Dari.io training. Dari.io training. Okay, so that is the name of my folder. Okay, so now let me use Visual Studio Code to open it. Okay, now in Visual Studio Code, when you click on this icon that looks like two papers put together, that is file. So it will give you option to open a folder because we have not opened any folder at all. So I click on open folder. So it takes me to my computer file system. So now I go to where I save that folder. So remember I named it Dari.io training, which I click on select folder. So good. So I have successfully been able to do that. Okay, I've successfully been able to do that. So this is Dari.io training. Okay, so now we were told in our documentation, let's look at the documentation again. Our documentation says clone down your Ansible config mgt repo to your system. Okay, so what we are going to do is to go to our GitHub, then copy the repository link. Okay, now let's go there to our GitHub. Now we are in the GitHub. We click on our Ansible config mgt. Okay, so we go to our code, then we copy again. Now let's go to our machine. Now we are now using our VS Code. So let's give attention to this. Now when you come to VS Code, okay, you come to VS Code, you click on this. No, you click on terminal rather. Click on terminal so that we have terminal to work on. You click on new. Okay, now we are in our terminal. So if you are using PowerShell, it will default to PowerShell. So let's wait while the terminal load. Okay, now we are here on the terminal. We can just type in git clone, and we paste. That's our URL that we just copied from GitHub. Okay, what this code is actually doing is to download, let's use a simple language, to download that repository that we have created in GitHub. Okay, we don't use the word download rather because as you are bringing down or you are cloning it down, there are other functionalities that come with it. You will see .git folder that will also come with it. So the terminology that is used here is clone. Okay, so we click on git clone. So we click and wait while the file is brought down to our system. So we have successfully cloned. So if we go back to our files, we can see Ansible config mgt. Is that not interesting? So definitely interesting. So let's expand the file. So we can see .git that I just mentioned. We can see the readme.md that we have there in our file. So we can even open it. If you choose to open it, every information we have is there. So that is interesting. So we have been able to do that. So let's go back to our documentation. Okay, now we are in our documentation again. So we are going to the next page. Okay, let's go to the next page to know what we are to do next. Now, okay, I am so excited to be here, but before we dive deep into what we have here, let's look at what we have learned so far in this our session. Okay, we have been able to know what Ansible is, what jump server is, that is item 1 and 2. We have accomplished item number 3. We have accomplished item number 4. We have also accomplished item number 7. Okay, now it is time for us to move to item number 5, which is how to prepare Ansible playbook and inventory using Yammer and how to run playbook. Okay, so let's go back there. Then before we move further, I just want to ask, do we have question? Okay, fine. So let's move to this part. I'm so excited here because we'll be working more with Ansible. Remember, Ansible is the reason why we are doing project 11. So that is why I am so excited. So let's see what we are expected to do. Step number 1. In your Ansible config management GitHub repository, create a new branch that will be used for development of a new feature. Okay? Tip: give your branches descriptive and comprehensive names. For example, if you use Jira or Trello, so what this means is that when we are giving a name, give a name that you will, with it, you will be able to know what exactly that branch is doing. That is what they are explaining here. So now let's do that. So we want to create a branch and give it a name. So let's go together. So okay, so let's go to our VS Code. Okay, we are going to our VS Code. We are in the VS Code. Remember, we have cloned down the Git repository. Okay, now for us to be able to create a branch or change it, but we need to know the branch where we are. So we can just say, can just type git status. Sorry for that. Git status. Yeah. Oh, sorry for that. So I'm supposed to go into the directory because this does not have git repository there. So we go to the directory. We cd into Ansible. Okay. So I'm there. So I can now say git status. So git status. So this will tell me where we are. So meaning that we are in main. So what we have to do now is to create a branch. Okay, just as stated in the documentation. So let me clear and create a branch. Okay, now let me just get some codes in my documentation. I have an extra code. So for me to be able to create a branch, most time you may not have to cram all this. So we can click on git checkout, then branch name. That will create a branch for us. Okay, git checkout, branch name. Okay, so I can just go to my, okay, can just come here and type that, paste that. What name do you want us to give it? We'll have -p, so I will give it git checkout, then minus b, that is the branch. Then we give it a name. What name do we? Let's call it prj. Let's call it 11 since we are in project 11 to give a good description. Okay. So what this does is that we just create a new branch and we check into the branch. Okay. Let's confirm this by typing git status. Git status. Okay. So we can see that we are already in the branch. So everything we will be doing henceforth for now will be in the branch. Okay. So meanwhile, I want to split my screen just to make life a bit easy for us so that we won't be moving from one windows to the other. Okay. Let me split my screen. So I bring this to my left. So let's bring the documentation to my right. Okay. So let me expand the website so that we'll be able to see everything. So we are here. So let's go to step 2. We have been able to name our branch. We've created it and we are in the branch now. Let's go to number 2. Say check out the newly created branch. That is what we have done. We have just entered the repository, the branch rather. Then number 3, create a directory and name it playbooks. It will be used to store all your playbooks. So we have to create a directory. Since I'm not using any Linux distribution, so I will just be going straight to the file and create this using VS Code. I'm not going to use the terminal to do that. Okay, so I will just right click and to create a folder. So what is the name of the folder? So the name of the folder, I will just copy and paste. Okay, the name of the folder is called playbooks. Okay, since I left the terminal, it's gone. So let me do it again. New folder. So let me just paste. Ctrl V. So if I'm using maybe Ubuntu terminal with make directory, I can easily do that. Or if I'm creating a file with touch, I can easily do that. Okay. Now, what is the next step? Number 4, create a directory and name it inventory. Okay. So let's create a directory and also name it inventory. Okay. Let me click folder. Then Ctrl V. I always advise it's better to copy and paste to avoid error. So we can see that we have created the tool folder. Okay, let's go to step 5. Step 5 says within the playbook folder, create your file, your first playbook, and name it common.yaml. Common.yaml. Okay. Now we go to our playbook. This is our playbooks folder. Okay, let me right click, create a file, then let me just paste Ctrl V. So we can see the symbol here is telling us that this is a special file, and in this case we are talking about YAML. Okay, just as when you have Java file, you call it java.jar. When you have Python, you also call it py.py. That is how you name it. The same thing here for YAML files. So you either use YML or you can also type YAML as the extension. Okay, so that is that. Then number 6 say within the inventory folder, create an inventory file.yaml for each environment: development, staging, testing, production, and all that. Okay, so what we have to do here is very simple. We come here, we create a file. Okay, we create a file. What is the name of the file? Remember, all file will be in .yml or YAML. So I have dev.yaml, under inventory, we also have staging.yaml, staging.yaml, and we also have under inventory again, we are to create uat.yaml. Then under inventory again, we are to create prod.yaml. So as we continue in this project, we'll be using each of these files, but on this project, we'll be restricted to dev.yaml. So we are through with the overall step number 3. Now we are moving to step 4, which says sets up an Ansible inventory. Now we need to put code in those inventory. An Ansible inventory file defines the host and groups of hosts upon which commands, modules, and tasks in a playbook operate. So what we are talking here, Ansible inventory, is just like a documentation of servers or a documentation of end operating systems that Ansible will work on, that Ansible will send file to or install files to. So the documentation of those servers, which could include the IP address, the name of the server, and more. So that is what we have in the inventory file. Okay, now let's go on. It says save below inventory structure in the dev file to start configuring your development servers. Ensure to replace the IP address according to your own. Now, what we are going to do now, before we do that, we want to set up our SSH agent. Well, we may wonder, what is SSH agent? Remember, since we have been logging into the server using the SSH key, and when we are using the SSH key, we are including the parts of the SSH key within the system. But with the help of SSH agents, we won't be doing that every time, okay? And besides, since our Ansible will be communicating with other servers with the help of SSH agents, all the all the SSH keys can easily be copied over to those servers, such that Ansible will be able to communicate effectively with those servers, because if they can't establish communication, Ansible will not be able to do anything on those servers. So that is the essence of the SSH agent. But the truth is that if you want to learn more, because if we are to start doing this right now, since I'm using Windows system, it might take us time. So that is why there is a link to that have been prepared. There is a full training to that on how to install and use SSH agents on our Windows machine. And you can as well learn that if you are using Linux machine or you are using Mac OS machine. But what we are going to do now, since I have installed, I have done all that, all we are going to do here is just to utilize it. So what do we do now? Let me check if I have the key in my system already. So I'll copy SSH add, then -L. Let me copy that, Control C, and paste in my machine to see if I have any SSH key that I have in my system. So I have one. But meanwhile, I'm going to delete it so that you people will learn how you can do it on your own. Okay. So now let me delete it. SSH add -D, we delete it. So it has been removed. Okay. I want to add again by typing SSH add, then I will type the URL of my pen key. So let me go to my documents to get the URL of my pen key. So let me go to my, okay, the name of my pen key is OSAS. So let me go and get the parts of my pen key. So here I will just copy the parts of my pen key, copy as parts. So let me go back to this, okay? So we are there. So let me just paste. So I've pasted the parts. Let me click enter. So we can see that my SSH key is added successfully. Now, let me just once again test it out to see if it is there by typing. Okay, let me bring back the, okay, SSH. So we see that the key is already there. Okay, so we are through with the SSH agent. So for us to log in through this interface as well, all I need to do is to copy this and get my public IP address. Let me copy this and get the public IP address. Hope you guys are seeing my screen. Okay, if you are not seeing it, please let me know. Okay, so let me copy the IP address from my server. Okay, so let me go to AWS to copy the IP address of the server. Okay, AWS is loading again. Let's wait while it loads. Let me copy the IP address so that I will be able to communicate with the server. Okay, sorry, it's taking time to load. Okay, taking longer than usual. What is happening? Okay, what is happening? It's taking longer than usual. Okay, it's loading. Okay, I'm there. So let me copy my public IP address. Control C to copy again. Okay. All right, let me delete this and just paste my public IP address. Okay, paste. So let's wait while we try to log in. Okay, so I'm there. I'm there on the machine. So now let's see what happened here. Let me just type SSH add. Oh, and we see that the SSH key is here. So this means that every servers that will be sharing that same key will be having this copied to those servers, this public key copied to those servers. Hence, the Ansible that is on this server will be able to communicate with the remote server it is expected to work on or set up. Okay, so we have seen that clearly. So let's move to the next agenda. Okay, now before we decide to copy anything now, we have to create these machines because right now we don't have these machines. So we are going to create one Ubuntu. We'll create four Red Hat machines. That is what we are going to create now. We are going to name them accordingly. So let's go to our AWS. So remember, we will use the same key. Okay. All right, here we are in our AWS. Let's first of all create the Ubuntu server. The Ubuntu server will be named LB. So we are all familiar with how to create a new server. So the name will be LB. LB. Okay. We scroll down. Okay, we just create Ubuntu. I prefer using Ubuntu 20.04. So we create Ubuntu 20.04. Okay. Okay, Ubuntu 2020 dot. No, I think I'm wrong. That is not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. My system is running slowly now. That is not what I wanted. Okay. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, let me go back again. So I want to Ubuntu. The instruction wants us to use Ubuntu. Okay. Okay, here we are. So let me select Ubuntu. So I'm going to use a smaller system. So I'm not going to use a big system. So we are choosing the free tier. Then our key pair, as we know, will be my usual OSAS. That is my key pair. Okay, so we must use the same key pair so that they will be able to communicate with Ansible. So I will just create a new security group. Okay, then I think that will be all. We launch that. Okay, so we have our Ubuntu load balancer server. Okay, we have that. We have that. Okay, so this is successful. So let's go to instances. So we still LBS here. So let's create the other four. Since they are the same OS, it's going to be Red Hat. So the remaining four, we are going to launch it at once. Okay, we launch it at once. So I'm coming. I'm not going to name it since I will be editing the name later. Okay, let's just hold on. Let's be patient for it to load. Just be patient. Okay, it has loaded. Remember, do not forget we are going to use the same pen key. We are using the free T2 micro. So okay, pen key. This is OSAS again. So we have chosen OSAS. Let's not make mistake. I still repeat again. But how many machines do we need now? We need 4. So we need 4. That will save our time. Let us launch. Okay. Okay, since it's 4, it's taking longer time, but don't mind. It will be true now. Okay, we are there. So let's go to instances. Instances, we are there. So we are going to rename accordingly. What are the names in our documentation? In our documentation, we have NFS, Web Server 1, okay, Web Server 2, NFS, Web Server 1, Web Server 2, okay, and DB. So we'll click on the pencil icon, name this NFS, we save. So we name this web server, okay, web server 1, yes, so the -1. So we have web server 1 and web server 2, okay. Server 1, we have web server 2, server 2, web server 2, web server 2. Also have the DB, okay. The last will be DB. So we have our DB. These machines are Red Hat. So what we will be taking note of right here will be the private IP. So let's hold on and allow the machine to load with their private IP. Okay, so we are going to be editing the file. Okay, let's go back to our documentation. So here we are in our documentation. We are to copy this and paste it in dev.yaml under the inventory folder. So let's just copy this right away. Okay, Control C to copy. So let's go dev.yaml. So imagine doing this with VI. Do you think it will be comfortable or convenient as compared to what we are doing in VS Code right now? It's not possible. Okay, so let me paste. Okay, so I have pasted. Hope you guys can still see my screen. So I have pasted what I have here. All right, what is next now is for us to edit it. We are going to edit the file. So meanwhile, while we are doing this, let me just close this part so that the screen will be bigger. We have enough space to edit. So under NFS, we are to replace this NFS server IP address with the private IP address of NFS server. Then Ansible SSH user is equal to EC2. We know that every Red Hat by Amazon, the default user is usually EC2 user, while that of Ubuntu is usually Ubuntu. Okay, so let's go and copy from AWS. Okay, so now let's start copying. Let's start from LB. We're starting from LB. You can click on it so we can get the private IP if it is ready. So the private IP of our LB server has been copied. So I want to paste it right away. So we have copied it. So I'm going to replace whatever we have here with the private IP address. That is done. That is done. So the next will be the web servers. Okay, web server 1 and web server 2. So let's go. Please, we need to be careful so we won't make mistake. Okay, so first is web server 1. So web server 1, this is the private IP. We'll copy that of web server 1 again. All right, we paste. Okay, that is done. So we'll copy for web server 2. Web server 2, web server 2, web server 2. That is done. We copy for DB. We copy for DB. Copy for DB. Copy for DB. Copy for DB. All right. Now we are still copying, so we have to copy for DB. We have to copy the IP address. Take note, it's private IP address. We are copying for DB and pasting as usual. So we have copied for DB. I've copied for DB. So that is done as usual. So it's remaining the NFS. Let's check if we have copied for LB rather. Let's see if we have copied for LB. Okay, LB. So the private IP of LB. So copy that of LB. Private IP of LB is the last one that we are copying. Control V. It's like we make a mistake. NFS, let's copy NFS. So it's NFS that we will copy now. NFS, okay. I'm not copy NFS, okay. So we'll copy for NFS now. NFS. Okay, Control V. So we can ignore this red line. No, it doesn't matter. Okay. So what this is actually telling us is this server that is named NFS. This is the IP address of the server that Ansible will communicate with. This is the username of the server that Ansible will communicate with. So usually when you are SSH into a machine, what we always need is the IP address and the username to be able to SSH into the machine. Okay, so we are through with the configuration as required. All right, what we are going to do next is, okay, I'm coming, is move to the next part that says, this is, okay, so we are in a playbook now. We are through with that part. Okay, so we will be going straight to our playbook to configure our playbook files. Okay, this is step 5 now. Create a common playbook. It is time to start giving our Ansible the instructions on what you need to be performed on all servers listed in inventory. So something needs to be done on these servers that we have listed on the inventory. So what do we do? Now it is time. So before we save, okay, remember everything we are doing here is actually on our local machine. Okay, we just press Ctrl S to save. Let's go back to our file menu. So what we have to do now is to copy whatever we have here and save it on our common.yaml. Okay, so let's copy this so we can paste on our common.yaml. Okay, I've copied it. I've successfully copied it. It's time for me to paste. So this is our playbook folder. This is common.yaml. So I will paste Ctrl V. So this symbol is white. We can see that symbol because we have not saved. When we save, it returns to star automatically. So right now, we are there. Now we have successfully pasted. So we don't have anything just try to understand what is going on this playbook slash common.yaml file. Okay, now we see 3 dash. That is the entry point into the YAML file. Then the name here is actually just a name that will give a brief description of what we want to do, and that is why we define the name as update web, NFS, and DB servers. Then take note of the host, very important. The host must be written very perfectly or accordingly to what we have in the dev.yaml, that is the inventory file. So if we take note, we have the web servers. If we see here, we see that the web servers is accurately spelled. We have the NFS, which is accurately spelled. We also have the DB, which is accurately spelled. This is very important. If we spell this wrongly, the host wrongly, it will not work. While we have the Ansible SSH user, under remote user here, we have EC2 user. So which must correspond with the user that we have in the inventory file. Then let's go to become. Yes, that is become user. Then become user root. So why do we have to enter as root? Remember, when you are installing any package on either Ubuntu or Red Hat, we usually use sudo. So sudo tells you that you are a root, tells the system that you are a root user. So that is what we have here. So Ansible is entering those systems through SSH as root user. Task. What exactly is the name of the task that our Ansible will carry out? This name is not compulsory, but it is descriptive so that everybody reading your code will be able to know. And even as Ansible is installing it, you will see all these names and how they apply. So we can see the name, ensure Wireshark is at the latest version. Now, we are using yum here. Remember, when you are installing any package in Red Hat, you use yum. install, right? So that is the essence of this yum. What is the name of the application we want to install? Wireshark. State latest. That means install it to the latest version. Now, this is a second task. We are through with the first task now. All these tasks will be done on NFS, web servers, and DB that we can see on our inventory. Now, we'll go to the next task, which is the to update load balancer, which is LB server. I remember the host, as I have said earlier, is LB here, is also LB here. Remote user is Ubuntu here, is also Ubuntu on the dev.yaml, which is the inventory file. Then, whenever we are installing, as I explained earlier, we have to enter as root. So the same Ansible does. Then what is the name of the task? To update apt repo. Okay, to update apt repo. So remember, when you are installing any package on Ubuntu, we use apt, right? So what is this going to do to update our cache? I mean, we want to, that is why we choose yes. Then there is another task that will be done on Ubuntu again. So on Ubuntu, which is the LP, we are doing two tasks. Okay. Now, if we look at it, the name of the task again is ensure Wireshark is at the latest version. What is we usually use apt when we are installing packages on Ubuntu. What is the name of the package that we are installing? Wireshark. Bring it to the latest. So that is what this YAML file is doing. So this is what Ansible we work on to be able to carry out its task on the inventory that is located at dev.yaml. I believe this is clear. Well, having done that, we are told to do this. Feel free to update this playbook with following tasks. Create a directory and a file inside it. Change time zone on all the servers, do this and that, okay? But what we are going to do this later. We are not going to do this now, okay? So we need to test if this is working first before we decide to do that. Okay, this now takes us to step 6. Step 6 says update Git with the latest code. Update Git with the latest code, okay? So we have been able to configure all our files that we need. So it is time for us to take it to Git so that Git will be able to push it through webhook and through Jenkins to the required server where Ansible is installed. Okay, so let's go. Let's come back to our VS Code so that we will complete our configuration there, save our files before we can pull. Okay, so now we need to save this common.yaml because we have not saved it. Okay, we press Ctrl S to save. So we have successfully saved that. Let me leave this machine. So it's not time yet. Exit. Let me leave the okay. So we are back again to our home machine or local machine. Okay. Remember, okay. So now we have been able to since I'm using Windows, it's very easy, but normally on the on the command line, let's do it the manual way of doing instead of going the automated way. So now let's just use this code git add. Okay, git add dot. So this will add all the files to git repo, our local repository. Okay, that is done. So we are going to commit all the files now. We can now type git commit. Okay. If we want to commit all the file, we use -a -a. This is just okay. Git commit -a. Okay. Then -m. And we write our commit message, commit message. Okay, write our commit message. Let's say updating. Okay, nice. Okay, so let's type commit message. Let's say updating, updating Ansible repository, Ansible repository. All right. So we click enter. Okay. Okay, that is done. So now we are going to push whatever we have here to the remote repository. Okay, let's see what happened. Let's see what we have here. We have seen the different files that we have here. Let's see what we have currently in our remote Git. Okay, GitHub. Let's go there. So let's see what we have currently there now, so that this thing will be very clear to us. Okay, let's go to the repository now. Okay, we are in the repository. Okay, as we are in the repository now, we can see that we only have Ansible config file, that config file management, that is readme. We only have the readme file there. Let's see what happens now by the time we run the following commands. So we have git push, git push. We are not pushing to main, so we are pushing to branch normally. So git push. Everything we are doing here is on the branch. Okay. Okay, let's confirm that we are still in our branch. You can just say git status. So we can see the name of the branch, PROJ11. So we have pushed everything right now. Okay, now let's go back and see what happened. The next step is for us to, now you have a separate branch. You will need to know how to raise a pull request get your branch pair reviewed and merged to the master branch. Commit your code into GitHub. Okay, now let's go to our GitHub and see what happened. So on getting there, we can see that there is already a pull request. So what are we to do? We compare the code rather. Okay, so the essence of this is to make sure that before you merge the code from the branch, you'll be able to see if the code will work well. If not, it will not push to the main branch. Okay, so let's see. If the code will not work, it will not push to the main branch. Okay, now we can have a look at it from here. So now let us merge and confirm merge. Okay, we can see pull request successfully merged and closed. So now let's go to our main repository now and see what happened. Let's go back and see what happened. Okay, so this is our main. We have all our folders here, inventory and playbooks. Okay, let's see what the documentation states again. Create a pull request. We have done that. Step 1, use git commands to add, commit and push your branch to GitHub. We have done that. Create a pull request. We have done that. So we have where it matters. So we have the opportunity to examine the codes there before we merge. Then number 5, head back on your terminal, check out from the feature branch into the master and pull down the latest changes. Okay, so take note that what we are doing here in the branch, everything we did here was actually in the branch. Okay, so we are going to ensure that we bring everything to the main so that it will work well. All right, so let's look at the code that we will use to do that. All right, so that is we will just say gate switch main. So we are going to use this to bring it down. Okay. Okay, so git we paste. So we are back in our main. So what we are going to do now, we are going to pull. So we are going to pull down what we have in our remote repository, because everything we have right now is in our remote repository main. So let's just use the code git. Well, let's see what happens. You see that there is nothing here before we click on it. There is nothing here under me. So let's click and see what happens. Okay, so can we see that we have all our files now in our local machine? Okay, so that is fine. So we have successfully done that. So what are we to do? So we want to confirm that all these files are on our Ansible server. So how do we do that? Let's go back to our machine again. Go back to our machine again. Okay, we are there. So we are told to, let's go back to, before we go back to our machine again, let's just go back to our Jenkins to see what have happened after we commit. Okay, definitely we are supposed to see a build now. So let's go back. We'll definitely refresh. We will see a new build. You remember the last build was 3. Okay, since we have pushed all our branch to the main branch, that will automatically trigger Jenkins to have a new build. So that is build number 3. So let's see if we have those files in Jenkins or Ansible server. Okay, let's copy that. We have copied this earlier. Let's just change the build number to 3. Okay, change the build number to 3. Let's copy and paste. Okay, Control C. Let's just copy and paste this. Okay, let's see it. Okay, can we see these files? Is that not amazing? Okay, so we have seen everything here. We have the README, we have the inventory, we have the playbooks. So in summary, what Jenkins is doing here is to automatically help us transferring the file that we have in our local system through GitHub to Ansible server. That is just the work that Jenkins is doing here, sending files from our local machine through GitHub using webhook functionality and push the file finally to the destination server, which is the Ansible server as we speak now. Okay, so we have been able to confirm that as required of us. Okay, now let's go to our documentation so we can see the next step. Okay, so the last page of our documentation is where we are going now. Okay, but before then, we need to test actually if we can remote into those our systems. Let's check if we can actually remote into the servers that we have just launched. Okay, let's see, remote into them. See, okay, let's log into the remote server again. See, all right. So we are in our remote yes, before server. We get here, right, the most exciting part of the whole program today Now let's see if we can remotely log into these servers individually. Okay, so all we need to do, let's start. Okay, let's start from the LB, which is the Ubuntu. Okay, we are going to type SSH Ubuntu into at private IP. So we already have it here. So Ubuntu at, let's see if we can log in remotely. Control V. Control V. Let me right click. Sorry, I was wrong. Let's do it again. Let me do it again. At, all right. Let me paste now. All right. Let's see if we can log in. Yeah, we are there. Think, are we able to log in? Okay. 2181. 3. Okay, yes, we are able to log in. The other one was 2181, while this IP is actually 8381. So that's good. So we exit from this, exit from the Ubuntu. Now let's clear the screen so we have more space. All right, now let's check if we can log into the NFS server right now. NFS server. Okay, change the IP address again. Change the IP address again. So the IP address. Let's just copy the IP address of NFS server. All right, Control C. I paste. Let's see. Okay. Do we know why we are not able to log in? Who can tell us? Okay, we made mistake. Remember, the username of this machine is EC2 user, not Ubuntu. Okay, so let's correct that. Let's change that to EC2 user. Okay, let's change it now. EC2 user. Okay, so I click. Oh, there's error in my IP address. Okay, there's error in my IP address. I was actually wrong. All right, let's see. Yes, okay. So sometimes error can occur. So we are in the machine. All right, so we have tested the NFS server. Let's test each of the web servers. Okay, test. No, we need to exit from here. Exit. Right, let's test each of the web server. Right. I hope we are following. We are following. The exciting part is coming. Most exciting part rather is coming. You will enjoy it. Okay, we are there. Exit. Okay. Let's clear. Let's also test the web server as well. So to be on a safer side, so with this we will likely have less error. Okay. Okay, we are there. Let's test the last one, which is the DB server, because we started with the LB. All right, Control C. I need to exit again because I don't have anything in that history. Let's test the last server, which is the DB, and log in. Yes, wow, we are able to log in into all the servers. So let's exit. Okay, so clear our screen. All right, so it's time for the exciting part. As I said earlier, run first Ansible test. Okay, now how do we run our first Ansible test? Okay, now we are on our Ansible machine, right? Now there is something we are going to do now. Let's go back to our Jenkins. Let's see our last build so that we can get those files. Jenkins, we have 4 as our last build. Okay, so let me just edit this and then change it to 4, and let's see what happened to 4. So let's ls this and Control C. Let's go to our machine. That is our Ansible machine, and paste. Let's see if we can ls it. Okay, we see that we still have all our documents here. But there's something I want to do, because for us to be going CD into archive, it's a bit long. So I will just copy the file. Let me just copy it to our home directory. So once we copy it there, it will be easier for us to work on, okay? And to copy this to our home directory, all we need to do is just, let's know where we are. CP, okay, pwd. So you see that where we are moving it to. Okay, so all we are going to do is to copy cp minus r, that is copy recursively, and let's just bring this here, bring the code here. So where are we copying it to? We're copying it to /home /ubuntu ubuntu. Sorry, I did not erase the ls. So to take our cursor back, press Ctrl A. Things. So we are there. So let me remove the ls there. Okay. That is done. So let's ls our home page and see ls. We have our archive there. I don't mind the other one. So if we cut the archive, we can say, okay, cut, ls archive, rather ls archive. Let's see what is there. So you see that we have our inventory, we have our playbooks there. Okay, fine. So it is time for us to run our playbook. Let's see what happened. All right, to run our playbook, let me just copy this. Let's copy. Okay, Control C. Before I run, I would like to use a big screen so that we can see what is happening. Let me just use a bigger screen. So we are almost done with the project. Okay, let's use a bigger screen. Okay, let me clear the screen first of all. Clear. So we need to cd into that archive. Okay, cd archive. Okay, we are there. So before we can run the playbook. Okay, so now let's run the playbook and see what happens. Okay, if everything is fine, I'm supposed to be able to run my playbook. Let's go. Now it is time for us to run our Ansible playbook. I've copied this code command line and I have posted it. Ansible playbook inventory. I introduce the inventory while playbook /common.yam, and that is where the playbook file is written. So let me click and see what happened. It's always very exciting. Okay, so let's wait while everything is happening, so we can ignore all these messages as well. They're not important as far as our task is accomplished. Okay, so we can see that all the application, the command that we give has been done. So we see how simple it is. Imagine logging into each of these servers, trying to configure all this setup. We might end up making mistake or committing error due to human factor. So now let's look at what has happened. Let's compare what we have here with what we have on our playbook, okay? So now look at what we have on our playbook. Let's just look at it stylishly. On the command line, on the command line we have update web, NFS, and DB servers. Look at it on the playbook. Do we have it? Update web, NFS, okay, that is the first block. Then what will the Ansible machine do? Now it check the hosts. What are the hosts? Ansible recognize the addresses, the IP addresses rather, which are private. So it check the 4 IP addresses because we actually have 4 servers, 2 web servers, 1 NFS and 1 DB server. So NFS is checking all the IP address. So hopefully it was able to check and log into those IP addresses. Now, what is the next? Ensure Wireshark is at the latest version. This is what we have here. So Wireshark, you can ignore these messages. Wireshark is actually installed. That is why on the first server it says okay, on the second server it says okay, on the third server it says okay, on the fourth server it says okay. So we are through with all the Red Hat servers. Now it's time for the Ubuntu server. What is the play? The name of the play is update LB server, which we have here. That is the name of the play. Now, what is the task now? Gather information before it does that. That is the first task. You need to gather information. So that's what we are seeing here. It's gathering information and it's able to gather the whole information. Now, it's time for the real task to be done. What is the first task here? Name of the task, update app repo. So repo have been updated successfully, which we can see here. All right, so the next task again, because there are 2 main tasks there, ensure Wireshark is at the latest version. So when we get here, we can see it on the command line again, and it actually says, okay, sorry for that. So we can see that it actually says, okay, so meaning that the task have been accomplished. This is the summary of the task. On the first 4 servers, we have, okay, we have 2, okay, that is logging into the server is 1 task to gather information. So that's why we have two tasks here. The same here, we actually have 2 tasks. That is the last one, 3. So the difference in color is that we have different plays. So we have 2 play all together. That is why we are having 2 colors. If we have like 4 different play, the color might be altered as well. So how do we know if these machines have actually been configured or the installation have been done? So fine, it is good we log into at least one of those machines to confirm. Let's check the IP addresses from the inventory file to see if those addresses have if those servers have actually been configured rightly. So we log into the NFS server, remember, SSH, and the user name of the machine, which is EC2 dash user. We're only confirming for Red Hat and okay, okay. What's the IP address? Let's copy the IP address. Copy the IP address first now. Control C. We pasted the IP address. Okay, we are there. So let me just get the code that I used. Okay. So we can just use this code to see if Wireshark have been installed successfully. Alright, so let's confirm if Wireshark have been installed successfully. So let's check. So we see that Wireshark was successfully installed. So just think how easy it is. Imagine coming to each of these servers doing repeated tasks. So we'll make mistake. It's just because it's a training process. But by the time you lay your hands, we understand this well. You see that it actually takes shorter times. Okay. So that is that. Let me leave the machine. Equally test for all servers, but now let's stop there. Now let's leave the machine and check our documentation. Let's go back to our documentation. All right, we have been able to do what we are supposed to do. Though, don't worry, even if you use Wireshark version, still the same thing. But I just prefer that one is clearer. Okay, for me. Okay, so now your update with Ansible architecture now looks like this. Okay, now let's look at the architecture again. What has happened? Okay, remember we have our VS Code in our local machine. Through the internet, we are able to communicate with our GitHub. Okay, able to communicate with our GitHub. We push our file to the GitHub by using git push. Then from there, through webhook, our Jenkins servers was able to pick the files, and that is where our Ansible resides. Okay, then from Ansible, with the command that we commanded, with the command that we give Ansible, Ansible was able to pass those instructions to each of these servers: web server 1, web server 2, DB server, NFS server, and the load balancer. So this is the summary of what we have done so far. Okay, hope it is clear before we move further. Do you have questions? If you have questions, please feel free to ask. Well, all right, so let's look at the instruction again so we know what to do next. Okay, as we can see in the instruction, we are to check out to another branch. Okay, change course, merge commit. Okay, so what we are going to do now is just to go back to our terminal. So on our terminal, just as we know, for us to be able to switch to a new branch, so we are going to use the branch 11 that we PROJ11. So we can just type git switch git. We are in main already. Git switch PROJ 11. Okay, so we click enter. So we have been able to switch branch. So whatever we will be typing now will be in this branch. So what do we do now? So what we have to do now is, okay, we go to our playbook. Since we already have our inventory fully documented, so let's go to our playbook. So what we have to do now is to go back to the documentary again. So in the documentary, we were told earlier that we had to add, let's look at it, what we were to do earlier. Wait, thinking, I'm coming. See under create your, I'm coming. Okay. Okay, we are told to create a directory and a file inside it, change time zone on all servers. So I already have a code that I have built down, which I'm going to add to this, which will help us. Okay, so we are going to just, let me get the file so that it will be fine. We'll be able to do it correctly. Okay, let me go to the code so we'll be able to do that easily. Okay, let's just copy every Control A, Control A, Control C. We'll go back to where we are coming from. So we have, let me just do A, Control V. So we have all the files. Okay, so now what are the extra files that have been added? So now on each of these servers, web servers, NFS server, DB server, LB server, we are going to carry out the following tasks. Create a directory. Okay, the name of the directory will be sample-folder. The path will be created in our home directory. What is the task? That is what is meant by this test. What exactly is going to do? Create a directory for us. Then within the directory, we want to create a file which is called sample.samplefile.txt. So it will be in the folder, sample folder. So definitely it will be home/sample folder/sample file. What command will do that? So what exactly will be done? Touch is the command to do that. Then for time zone as well, what is the name of the task? So we have set time zone, name, Africa/Lagos. So here now we have additional 3 tasks: create a folder, create a file, and also change and set time zone. Set time zone. So that is what this will do for us. So remember, everything we are doing here is actually in a branch, a Git branch called prog11. Okay, so let me save this file. Control S. So I have successfully saved the file. Okay, so as usual, we will do the following operation: git add dot. Okay, git add. Okay, okay. That is done. Git add, then git commit, commit. Okay, updating. Let me call this updating Ansible playbook. Updating Ansible playbook. Ansible playbook. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay. Let's do git push. Git push. Okay, so the file has been pushed. So as the instruction implies, we are still going to pull down. We are going to pull to our main branch. Okay, so let's try and go back to our GitHub and do that. Okay, by now supposed to have been waiting for us now. Okay, good. Compare and pull request. Okay, so let's compare with just repeating the task we have done earlier. Okay, so we have created a pull request. All we need to do is to merge request. So we will confirm our merge. Okay, so all right, so merge is successful. So let's go back to our main now, and we discover that everything is there. Okay, let's check our playbooks. Okay, Commodore YAML. Let's see if the time zone and extra task have been added. Fine, the extra task have been added. So we are going to check out to main now as usual. So we can say git switch main. We'll go back to our main, pull down what we have in the remote repository, that is GitHub. So git pull. Okay, let's pull down to our main. So we have everything on our main. All right, so this is done. So having done that, what do we think we expect right now? So Jenkins will have built again. So let's go back to our Jenkins and see we are on 4 before. You can see we are on 5 right now. 5 have built again. This is our latest build. Okay, so we can reload again and we see that we are on 5. Okay, so meaning that we'll go to our file as usual just to change this to 5. We'll change this to 5 so that we can run our Ansible playbook again. 5. Okay, let's copy and go to the interesting, go to our remote machine. All right, so let's just clear and go to our remote machine. Clear. Okay, right. Let's go to our remote machine. That will be SSH. Good. So we are there. Go for this. Okay, so we are in our remote machine. Clear. Let's confirm if we still have our files there. We are already in build 6. So what we do is just for me to cd into the archive directory and run my playbook. Okay, so for me to run my playbook, let me just bring out the history of the commands to run my playbook. Okay, so the playbook is running. So let's go down the commands. Let's look at what is happening. Let's go down to the last few tasks and see how successful those tasks will be. So we are there. Let's look at the last few tasks. We had 3 tasks on all the servers that are involved. Okay, let's look at okay, create a directory. Directory was done, created on the 5 server. Then another task to create a file. It was done as well. Then another task to set time zone was done. A recap, all the task was accomplished. Okay, let's just try and log into any of these machines. Okay, let's try and log into any of these machines to confirm the last code that was added, if it's actually played. So let's go to our inventory to get the IP address of these servers. Let's go to inventory so we can get the, let me clear the screen. So let's go there. Let's just, as usual, let's sh. Let's just go to Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu IP address. Let me just copy the LB IP address. Okay, Ubuntu. Let's just check. Remember, we set time. Okay, we are there. So let's see what happened. Let's just type date. Think so, date. Let's see. And see West African time. So Lagos is under West African time. It was changed successfully. Let's check our home directory and see if the file and the folder we created are there. So we can just go. We said ls /home/home. We see, so we can see our sample folder. Can we see it? That is our sample folder. Let's even cut. Okay, we did not write anything in that file. Okay, so but the file is there. Let's ls it. Let's say ls, didn't write anything in it, /home/sample. See what happened. Okay, it's fine. What we have to do, we can see we have our sample file.txt. So we're not actually asked to write anything in it. So that is it. That is what we have been able to achieve in this project. And this mark end of the project. I know this has taken a long time. This is the end of project 11. So we have been able to achieve our aim in this project 11. So at the beginning of the project, we stated that we are going to have the following objectives, which are what Ansible is as a configuration management tools, and we'll be able to get that clear. And we also said that we are going to know what Jump Server is, and we'll be able to understand that. We also learn how to install Ansible, and we also saw the power of VS Code, using VS Code over Vim or Nano. And we see how powerful it can be when VS Code is communicating with GitHub. And we also understand how to run a playbook, how to write a playbook, and also how to write an inventory and what an inventory file actually is. We understand how SSH agents work, and also we understood how we can run Jenkins freestyle project and how Jenkins was able to transfer file from our local system through GitHub to our remote machine. And finally, we were able to automate installation of applications on multiple servers at the same time. So we have been able to achieve all our aim. Well, this is not the end of Ansible. Tell you it still continues, okay? In project 12, we are going to learn about imports and many more. And we will also learn about Ansible modules as well. So keep the ball rolling. Do not be intimidated. I know we have learned a lot. Take your time. I know that somehow, because of the time duration, some of us may somehow have been tired. But take your time, go through this video again. I believe strongly you will be able to implement this project successfully. And when you are done with that, you will be very happy and be very confident to move to the next project. That is project 12. Thank you so much.